Hello fellow modelers! I've been working on this project for 3 months and I think that it's finally time to put an end on it. So this video will be all about important steps that you need to finish a diorama and to put it on a display. Let's dig into it. Here you can see our elements ready for final procedure. Our actors are painted, the KUBE wagon is ready for stowage, and here we have a lot of gear to put around. If you remember, this toy gun has a string on it. Well, I tried to burn the hairy stuff away with the lighter, but the road burned down in a blink of an eye, so we have to redo it. So, I re-drilled the holes. Put a new no hairy string through with a knot. I applied a small amount of CA on the knot to block it. Then I repeated the process on the other end. Before gluing the other end, we must do some test fitting. I think it will be okay. After blocking the other end, I cutted the ends with sharp cutters. Don't use your fancy styrene cutters, those are for styrene only. The string was painted with a color from the wet palette. I think a flesh tone. And yes, this is the wet palette from nearly 1 week ago. It still works. So, the gun was mounted with CA. Try to choose spots where the glue will not be visible. I retouched the tip where the gun was glued to the toothpick with black. I gave it a little sand first. So, if you use strings like this, first choose non-hairy ones, and second, put them on and paint them at the end. And little Helmut is ready for the stage. I needed a box of chocolate. I used Canva. It is an online free program when you can set the size of your project in millimeters. So I resized the photo from the web to 40 by 40 millimeter. But I needed a 4 millimeter circle. All I had to do was set the printer to true dimension and scale it down by a 0.1 factor. Et voila! For the cutting process, I used the same 4 mm punch tube that I used for the styrene body of the box. I painted the styrene disc in white. For the gluing, I first tried CA, but it melted the colors of the print, so PVA glue was used. Again some test fitting. CA was used to glue the box in the hand. And here is our Gruber with his box of chocolate. Some stowage was mounted on the KUBE wagon with CA. Here you must be careful and do a lot of test arrangement to see what works and what not. It is very important that stowage placement looks realistically. I wanted to simulate some dust on the windshield, which was removed by the wipers. First, I traced the windshield on the masking tape. I knew that it will be a hard journey and I made a few more just in case. I then removed the masking tape a few times to make it less strong. Then I measured the dimension of the wipers and the position. I started to draw what to cut, looking online for reference. It is the first time I was doing it, so it was quite hard for me. So I finally cut out a pair and do some corrections on them. Then I applied them to the windshield, corrected the position a few times, and after the test fit I knew that I am on the right way. The right color for dust would be Tamiya Buff, but I didn't have it, so I mixed my own. I started with roughly 2 parts flat earth and 1 part white. Later I discovered that the color was way too dark and I added a big amount of white in the airbrush. You should start with white and put a small amount of flat earth in it. So I started with the windshield. You must go slowly and try to apply the paint from all the sides lightly and evenly. Then I moved to the KUBE wagon. Here I concentrated to the lower parts of the body. And on the stowage, to blend it in with the vehicle. At the end, the scene was dusted too. It is very hard to tell when to stop. I hope that this will come with experience. It was finally the time to peel away the masks from the windshield. The dusting that you saw on video was probably enough, but I did another pass off screen and of course overdid the effect. I was about to throw the windshield away, but then I started scraping the surface with my fingers, a piece of cloth and my nails. At the end, I also used some superfine polishing sponge. And look at it, not bad at all. I glued it in place with PVA. Then I started to take away PVA spillovers with water. Another discovery. PVA tint with water is great to simulate some grime on glass. I hate wasting modeling colors for those kinds of applications, so a generic art shop acrylic black paint was used. I applied some cardboard so the scene is lifted from the ground. Those colors should be used almost out of the bottle. Next time I will try a minimal tinning with water because it's hard to spread this creamy-like paint precisely. The upper frame was quite challenging. On the bigger surfaces there are no problems. Just apply some paint and smear it around until there is no more accumulation on the surface. For the design I used Canva again. Setting the size of the project in millimeters is priceless. I printed the design with a normal house printer on normal paper. Then I covered it with transparent tape and cut it out. For the plate I used 1 mm styrene. Here a bigger box of chocolate is finished. First I used PVA to glue the paper on the styrene, but it didn't work great. So I opted for B-adhesive tape. Apply a piece of tape on the styrene, press firmly to the ground to ensure the bond, and then cut away the excess. Then glue the paper on. Again, you should push it against the table to make a nice bond. Then make a few cuts with a hobby knife. You should go slowly, and you don't have to go always through. At the end, just snap off the piece. Some careful sanding with different grits, and our title plate is ready. You can also paint the edge in black if you think is needed. This is a very important step. I placed the KUBE wagon in a way so it's not parallel to any straight edges of the scene. Then I checked that all 4 tires are touching the ground. I placed little Helmut on the sidewalk so that eye contact is established between the figures. Then I moved the toothpicks against the tires, so I marked the position. I applied the glue on the tires and placed the KUBE wagon in its position. Helmut was removed from the mount. The goal is to leave a few millimeters of wire on the figure. Then I punched a hole in the ground to mark the position of Helmut. And all that I had to do was apply some CA to the wire and to the shoes. At the end, be sure that everything is glued properly. The scene was a little empty, so I took my trusty newspapers from the Terra. These things works almost every time. And posters too, but here we don't have a wall to mount them. Just Google a newspaper image from the Terra, resize it, multiply it and print it. This is it. First, you should do some dry fitting to see if the position works. Then, apply some PVA to the paper, put it in place, and slowly start to work it with some PVA and water. When it is soaked, you can put it in place with a brush or a toothpick. You should make it adhere the scenery properly. And the final step, mounting the title plates. Nothing special really, but it is an intense moment. All that work getting to an end. I glue them with CA. The black one is the name of the diorama and the other is a box of chocolate. The red one is there to help the story get through to the viewer. Okay, the name is pretty obvious, chocolate for the good soldier. But it is a nice touch of color and the viewer will hopefully do 1 + 1 and understand what is that red dot in Gruber's hand. Please tell me what you think in the comments. This was my first project here on YouTube and I'm glad it's done. If you like my content, please subscribe to this channel and help me grow it. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Diorama Devil, when I post almost daily updates of my work. Also on Facebook you will see the announcement of a new project. I'm not quite sure about it, but I have a few ideas in mind. In the meantime, thank you for watching and stay tuned.